Oh, sure.
Welcome back to the second episode of the DL show. How are you feeling after the first episode?
Like amazing. Honestly, I would be lying if I said like every day I wasn't like checking, but like not in like an obsessive way, but like because I'm so proud of what we done, and I'm even though it's just one episode, we got 250 views so far, which is great. Like I was hoping, my personal goal was like, okay, I know it's an hour long. I just want like who's gonna be tuned in. It's out of nowhere. My personal goal was like, honestly, I thought maybe 10 or like 15, 20, like 30, 40, 50 if I'm being ambitious. But where we are now already so soon is just, it's super heartwarming, and I feel like it's encouraging.
100%. I feel the comments. I think about the exactly whatever.
No, I think about that all the time. That like
it's good engagement.
exactly.
But yes, I feel like the response it has, even though it was a small response, it felt really overwhelming.
Yeah.
In the sense that like it was just a lot of support.
Yeah.
A lot of people that wanted. I mean, we said we were gonna keep doing it. But that just gave us even more motivation.
Yeah.
Put even more effort in.
Yes.
Like,
a trillion billion.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
yeah.
I literally have gotten so many messages ranging from, like, I'm so proud of you, it was amazing, to just no context, just 1 trillion billion, or like, exactly. Yeah, like, which is funny. Like, I don't take it offensive at all. It makes me happy that you guys notice it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Because it actually shows that they're watching. You guys pay attention. Of course, we'll do it, but if there's someone on the other side that is going to appreciate it, it just makes you want to do it even more.
Of course, yes. And I know that like a first episode can get a lot of buzz because it's the first one, right? I'm a screenwriter. I love to write a pilot, but at the same time, it's also like really hard because I already want to just go in depth. So like for episode 1, I was very nervous of our podcast because I'm like, oh, like we're establishing, and I want to build off that already, but you can't build it off unless you have a good foundation. And I feel like we had such a great foundation, not just in the content, but also just like we talked about, the reactions, which have been great. I do want to say there was like a quality issue. Like I that was on me. I edited it. It was HD when I exported it, but the file that got posted to YouTube came straight from iMovie. And so like it came off a worse quality.
I personally thought it was like a really like funny touch quality because at the end of the day we are like a makeshift podcast.
Yeah, we're homebrew.
We're not we don't have editors, we don't have people behind the camera. It's just us. It's literally just us two.
I heard about there's like now, because it's become such a large thing, like podcast production companies, and like they'll just literally people that have enough already of a following, all they need to do is apply, and these podcast companies will just do it for them, edit it for them, film it for them, which is great. Wish that was us, but at the same time, like, we're not there yet, and that's so okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
I also realized last episode that we didn't say what like DL, like obviously Drew Leo, but I feel like there's a second message to it that I thought maybe we could just kind of talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So for those who are in the know, DL, it grabs your eye because you've probably seen it a bunch of times. For those who know,
If you get it, you get it.
You get it, you get it. You don't, you don't. And for those who don't, that's totally fine because I'll explain it quickly. DL in like gay terminology stands for like down low. So if a man is DL, that means he's down low. That means he's exactly that. Like it in itself is a lifestyle. A lot of men, that's why you'll hear like, I like women saying like, oh, I found out my man was DL, or like essentially like it's men who are probably most likely straight passing, who probably have a girlfriend or dating women who sometimes are even homophobic, who are misogynistic. They're like, they have the mind capacity of like ignorant straight male, but their sexual desires don't align with that. And so it's faceless profile pics on Grindr or even Tinder. It's just their stats. They want a specific type. And so like we wanted to do our own play on DL. Leo came up with it. Genius, actually. Which is so funny because I feel like we're obviously not DL, but it's the joke.
100%. The layers.
Exactly.
Like you said, nowadays, the term like DL, it kind of has left the gay community. It kind of just, as a whole, like for example, Giselle. Giselle always talks about like DL man, and I like that in a way are finding out what it means because that way it's kind of they're more receptive to like what their man is doing.
Yes.
You know, like, or even their family members. Because like,
Ooh.
I feel like for me, the term DL, I associate it a lot with like older Mexican men, because, you know, of course, growing up in like the 80s or whatever back then, they didn't have the freedom we do now. So they had to resort to, you know, getting women pregnant really early on, raising families, and that built up resentment and hate. You know, it causes misogynistic men, you know, well, misogyny.
Yeah.
And then that internal struggle with their sexuality causes homophobic men. I like that in a way. It's kind of like shining a light on it.
Yeah.
You know?
My full-time job right now, I'm an HIV counselor tester. The more straight women I see that like almost refuse to get HIV tested, or they're like, oh, well, I know. And it breaks my heart, because I'm like, the juxtaposition between the straight women who swear up and down they have no risk versus the amount of DL men that are out there that are in relationships. I always advocate for like getting tested, even if you are in a relationship. And so like you said, like, it's good that women are learning more, because like women, you never know. You really never know. And that's not, I hesitate to shame DL men, because I understand there's so many layers to that, but at the same time, they are putting certain people at risk by hiding their identity in terms of like sexuality. Because if a man is DL, he doesn't even tell his friends who he hooks up with, let alone going out and getting tested. Or like I'll never forget, I matched with this guy on, I think it was Bumble or Tinder, and he like, kudos to him, he dropped all the baggage. He told me, one, that he had a 2-year-old daughter that he doesn't talk to. Okay. Like, yeah, and that he's had sex a bunch with women all the time with no condoms, and he's never been tested. And he told me all that, right? I obviously stopped responding. I'm like, you're a bum. You don't take care of yourself. You put others in danger. And he was just had the like audacity to be like, did I say something? I'm like, yeah, girl, you're insane. Like, go get help. So yeah, that's just DL men. That's the DL show. There's layers. It's fun. My cousin Mia, who we love, I'll never forget when I told her, like, oh yeah, DL man stands for download men. And she goes, but that's not you and Leo. I'm like, well, yes, girl. We know that. Exactly. Before we really get into like the crux of things, I did want to give a shout out this week. No matter if we say it or not, I want to preference, we're always for the liberation of people, whether that be Palestine, Congo. There's so many different places within America. The amount of, especially BIPOC, you know, Black, indigenous people of color, they're the ones who are getting locked up for shit like holding weed, you know, while white people get to make it the personality trait and like, oh, I smoke with my parents, I go out there, like, but God forbid it be a brown person or a Black person doing the same thing. So we do want to say, of course, no matter if we mention it, so not every episode we're going to shout it out, but just know we're always going to believe that.
Always.
But this week I did want to shout out something I came across on TikTok, and I'm going to send it to you guys, and it's Operation Olive Branch. So from my understanding, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say an organization, but more of like a collective that are organizing and piecing together resources, information, and GoFundMes involving Palestine and Gaza right now. There's, from like what I've looked, tens and tens, borderline hundreds of GoFundMes being made that have been certified by this collective that they're legit, and these are people who are in needing help. So a lot of people feel like, I mean, something as small as like boycotting Starbucks, they feel like, well, am I really doing anything? And, you know, there's conversations to be said about that. But if you actually want physical help, like to know you actually did something, I'll post it, obviously, either in the comments or the description, but Operation Olive Branch. Yeah. So, how's your week?
Good. This week I've been listening to Never Lose Me by Flo Milli, Cardi B, and SZA.
Oh!
No particular reason. I really love SZA's playfulness.
Yeah.
And also Cardi's funny, you know.
Her bars, yes!
They're funny.
They are funny.
I was already a big fan of the song, but I love SZA. Like, her voice, her charisma. Her pen.
Yeah.
Just everything about it like exploded the song for me to another level.
One thing about SZA that we've talked about with Lana, I feel like Lana, her songwriting she is in touch with Americana. She knows how to say certain things that's such like a staple. And I feel like SZA represents that as well. But just like, if I'm being honest, like Black Americana, like 100%. The Black American lifestyle. While Lila,
or just not white.
Lana, exactly. You know? Lana is obviously the white lifestyle. But like, you know, her line in that song, like from the Burbs, but I suck it like Suki. Like, if you know, you know. It's just, I love it. I love that song.
It's a perfect way for. That's how I start my mornings. Like when I brush my teeth. Like,
he's feeding a with his hand on my Bucci. You know, touching a million of Gucci.
Yeah. What about yours?
Okay, so this song that I've like this past week have been listening to a lot is the Von Dutch from Charli XCX, specifically the remix with Addison Rae. I love both versions, but the reason why the remix has been like on loop is I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, but there's this one part of it that I always like say, and it goes, always give me more views. It's kind of like your day job. Got a lot to say about my debut, about all the things I do. I guess it makes sense because I'm just living that life. And like even the first part, always give me views. So like I like obviously the YouTube thing, and I just want to preface by saying we have gotten zero hate, not even a single dislike, but I have imaginary haters. I always swear like I have people out there who are waiting for my downfall, you know?
I don't talk to anyone but haters. You know?
So I'm like, so every time I go there, I'm like, yeah, you're hate watching my video, you're giving me my views, it's like your day job, like you got a lot to say about my debut, like obviously the first episode, my debut. It's all fake, but like it gets me a little confidence,
motivation.
Exactly. You know? I will say like it's so funny because I've always felt like people hate me like secretly. They never said, but one time, and like I've never actually had physical proof of this, but one time, one of my best friends, Alex, he was at Hillcrest. Which is, for those who are outside San Diego, it's basically it's San Francisco in a street, you know, it's very gay. White gay, but you know, it's gay, whatever, you know. Yeah, you know, there's a mix. But so my buddy went there with a group of friends. I was not there, right? So what happened was my buddy Alex was there. Somebody approached them. They go, "Wait, you're Alex, right?" And Alex goes like, "Oh, well, like, what's your name?" And they ignored it. And then moving forward, they go, "You're like best friends with Andrew, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, like." Thinking that maybe they knew me like in a friendly way, and he goes like, "What are your names?" So I could be like, "Oh, I ran into," and literally he goes, "So what are your guys' names?" And like, they just go, they laugh away and walk away after being like, I'm like,
okay, but I'm like, those are not imaginary haters.
Yeah,
those are real ones, you know.
Yeah,
at least you know for sure there's two.
Exactly, whoever you two are, like, got a lot to say about my debut. Yeah. But it's so random, huh? And I'm like, and one thing I love my gay community, but one thing that I had to comment is like the Regina George cattiness of it. I'm like, why
we're not in high school anymore, guys?
My God,
I know on TV it looks pretty cute, but like this, like, you're not a girl. First of all, you're not Regina George. No, like you're George.
You're George.
You know?
Yeah.
So wrap it up.
Yeah, exactly that. So, but yeah, so that's why my fake haters are kind of real, sort of that. Like, okay, so how's your week?
Well, Wednesday I got let go from work.
Yeah.
You know,
how did that make you feel?
It was a temp job, so it wasn't like, you know, I was already hired. I was working towards getting hired. I thought I was gonna get it, but it was the environment there. It was just too much for me.
It was toxic.
It was toxic. Yeah, it was just too much, and I did at first. I think the shock of it. It was just, you know, of course when you lose a job, especially not in these times when it's super hard to get one. Everything's really expensive. I'll be honest, I cried a little bit, but then as I started just like going through the emotions, I felt really calm, and like maybe not calm, but in peace. Yeah. Because like a couple weeks ago, something happened at work. You know, it brought me down. I remember, you know, I pride myself with being someone that like tries to be a lot of light, you know, like just a person full of light. And that was the first time in like years where like I felt like my light had been dimmed down, you know, and it was really bad. And it was just more of the fear of not having anything to do. But now, you know, we had filmed the first episode the Sunday prior, which, I mean, I was overjoyed. Yeah. I was over the moon. Like, you know, I was so excited. I remember we had like that post like smoke sesh.
Yeah.
And like I was just really happy. And then I remember like another thing that happened this week is I came out to my little sister. I hadn't come out to anyone, only my close friends like you, Aileen. But I had realized that we were talking about, you know, like being gay men or like men who are attracted to men, and it just hit me that like my sister was gonna see this and she was gonna find out. I mean, you were there. I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do. Like I was in a way, I felt like I was spiraling. But I just like, you did too. You calmed me down. It was gonna be okay, and it was, because when I got home after, I told her, like I sat her down. I was like, Sami, like I really love you, you know, and I wanted to tell you before you find out through the podcast, like I'm attracted to men, you know. That's the thing though. I feel like a struggle of mine to come out is that I still don't know what I am.
Yeah.
I consider myself gay because I've slept and I am attracted to men, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that I am 100% gay because I've had feelings for women. You know, I've had crushes. I remember like almost all my elementary school crushes. So I don't think I'm at the point where I can say that I'm not attracted to women. So that's why, you know, but it was a really, talk about weight off your shoulders. That was another, you know, really relieving experience because, you know, my little sister and I shared mutual like secrets.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what coming out is supposed to be, you know? It's supposed to bring families together. It's not supposed to drive a wedge, because that was one of my fears. I felt that by me coming out, the things that I couldn't control, which were like my parents' reactions, my family's reaction, like those things that I can't control are the things that terrify me the most.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I mean, I still didn't even come out to my parents. I only did to my little sister. But I don't feel the fear that I used to. You know?
Yeah. I said it before, and I was like, it gets easier.
It does.
The first time, but the first time, it's the scariest thing in the world. But like each time, it does get easier.
Yeah, because I remember you telling me like, oh, once you come out once, the next are going to be super easy. You're just going to want to come out all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember after I took a walk to 7-Eleven, like by myself, and I was just like, who am I going to tell next? I'm like, who am I going to, like, you know, I can't wait to, I just wanted to tell more people.
Oh,
but now I'm like you know, my experience with the whole idea of coming out, or like, it's not, I feel like it's not the same because of like the type of person I am. Because like, can I ask how your coming out was?
Yeah. I came out a bunch of times, right? I came out when I was, I want to say 16. So when I was 15, I had a boyfriend. It was like my first love, and that is mostly what inspired me. I remember my boyfriend at the time, my high school boyfriend, came out first and like not pressured me, but was like, oh, well, when are you coming out? Mind you, and it's something I want to talk about more, but I've always been queer coded. Like the first time I had some family members see me for the first time, which I was 7, the first thing they asked my mom was, am I gay? When I remember being in 2nd grade and my stepdad at the time asked me, are you gay? And I didn't know what it was. I went to school that day and I asked, it was a substitute teacher. He was like, does anyone want to learn what words mean? And so everybody's asking and I go, and I'm like, what's gay? And I know he was gagged, but he told me, oh, gay means happy. So I remember calling my mom from work that day and being like, Mom, I am gay. I am happy, you know? And that just, she hated it. Anytime anyone would try, and one of the earliest memories I have, I remember watching Family Guy with him, and we're sitting in the living room. I must have been 5 or 6, and there was like, you know, it's Family Guy. There's sometimes gay people, and they kiss, whatever. Half the time they like end up like dead or something. Like it's a joke. It's, you know, it's not that deep. But I saw it. I didn't really react. I'm a kid. That night, my family met up for dinner. It was my tia Monica and like a bunch of my little family, right? And my dad brought that up. He goes, oh yeah, like Andrew saw guys kissing on TV. And my tia goes like, oh, well, what would you do if Andrew was gay? And I remember, and I was so young, but I remembered it. This was before I thought about anything. Like, I didn't think of my sexuality. I was a kid.
Why would you?
Exactly. I remember him saying, I would rather burn in hell than Andrew be gay. And that, like, really, you know, as a kid, that doesn't hurt. But as a kid, like, I didn't understand gay, but I understood hell.
Of course.
Yeah, I was taught hell.
Yeah, fire.
Oh, almost as long as I can remember, I remember hell. Yeah. And so I just connected, like, damn, in my head as a child, I'm like, being gay is worse than, like, hell. And that really did stick with me. And growing up, I wasn't a femi kid in the sense of, like, I wouldn't dress dolls, you know, I wouldn't dress up. I remember there was little stuff here and there. My cousin Mia, shout out, we love you, boo. She was never a Barbies girl. My grandma and my tia would buy her Barbies. She never played. She was a soccer girl. I love her, but I was the one who would play with her Barbies, you know. And I wanted my own Barbies. I wanted to have had that, and I remember that. And I had little sisters, and I would play with their Dora the Explorer house set, you know. And I will say there was one thing that I also remember, which was, God, I must have been 8. It was the Fergie Big Girls Don't Cry. And I remember as a little kid, classic, you know, I'm as a kid, I'm like singing Big Girls Don't. And I remember my mom goes, you're not a girl. Like, don't sing that. You're not a girl. And I just was like, okay. You know, and like, so I just say that to say, like, it's always been like in my head, it's bad. Like, and it's my parents who always reinforced that. So that kind of took some time. And when I first more came in tune with my sexuality, it was middle school. And I was straight at the time, meaning like identified as straight, but I very clearly was in love with boys, but I was like, oh, I want them to be my friend. Like, and I remember me and my friend, my gay, who would also come out as gay, shout out to Abel, you know what I'm talking about. We both had a mutual friend that we would fight to be his bestie, you know? But really it was because we had a crush on him, and we like realized that moving way later forward. But so that was there. But I remembered having crushes myself. And I'm not like saying this is the same thing, but looking back, I realized I did love those women. But in the same way I love Eileen, in the same way I love Allie, in the same way I love the women in my life. I just, as a kid, you're told if you're a boy, you need to be into women and vice versa. So when I realized I had strong feelings for these women, I assumed it was because I had a crush. But I'll never forget, I remember like confessing to one of my crushes at the time, and her being like, I don't like you like that, but I love you as a friend. And I remember I was happy. I wasn't sad. I remember going to bed like, okay, because I messaged her right before bed, being middle school, you know. And I remember like, okay. And I went to bed like, I didn't even want that, you know. So rolling in freshman year. Freshman year, identified by then as bi. That was just, and I'm not one of those gays who are like, all gays are just like, stop at bi on their way to gay. You know, obviously bi people exist, but just in my personal experience, I identified as bi. And I remember telling a friend who I definitely, looking back, had like a crush on. And me and this friend got into a fight. And I like said whatever, right? He ended up telling a bunch of people that I liked guys. And so I remember the next day, this one guy who was so like MAGA core before even MAGA just was like, so you like guys? And I was just humiliated. And I was just like, So I remember the first person that I came out as bi to was the same person that I confessed my crush to, that ultimately went like, no, I like you as a friend, and me happy. Like, she was the first person I came out to as like bi. I remember crying, holding her. But, you know, I don't remember when I made the switch, but at one point I'm like, okay, I don't like girls. Like, I only really like men. And then my sophomore year, got a boyfriend. My high school boyfriend was the complete opposite of me. Where everybody clocked I was gay, he was extremely street passing. So we kind of had that dynamic. And I feel like that also shaped how I viewed myself, where I'm like, okay, I guess I'm the girl gay. You know, because I still have old mindsets of like the guy, the girl. And I felt like, okay, and I bet people see me as the girl. So like, whatever. But so I'm dating my high school boyfriend for maybe about a year. And the first parent I came out to, so This is gonna sound weird. I have like 40 bajillion parents, but my pops, I'll always call him my pops. I didn't meet my biological father until much later. I was like 7. But my dad, my dad. Like, he's the one who raised me. That's my dad, and I call my dad, and my pops. So moving forward, if I say pops, that's what I mean. So my pops was the first person I came out to. My pops lives in Santa Ana. This is San Diego. So we would see each other not the most often, but we did regularly hang out. And to be fair, even now, like, I see him more as like a best friend, like, truly. And like, we'll get into big fights, but
Can I see something?
Of course.
I feel like that's the foundation to having a good relationship with a parent once you're older. You have to see each other as friends rather than like father and son.
Yep.
Because like, I go something like off topic, but like, for example, my mom and I.
Yeah.
Like, I can't talk to her like my mom anymore. Yeah. Because like, if not, she won't understand.
Yeah.
Like, I have to talk to her like a friend.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's worked wonders with our
relationship.
Yes. It's like,
you guys are equals.
Exactly. We're we're no longer, I'm not your kid. Oh, I am your kid.
Yeah, of course.
But like, I'm a grown up now.
Yes. And that's the thing. Like, that's why my pops was the first person I came out to in terms of parents, because I was close with him, because we were like friends. And I love my pops. And so I came out to him. It was Thanksgiving weekend. And I remember he goes, oh, like, I asked him, actually, I'm like, can we go out driving? And it was after dinner, and he's like, yeah, sure. So we go to some random like parking lot, and he's letting me drive, and I'm driving, and I go like, okay, I'm gonna say it, but here's some context. Like, maybe about a year before that, my pops asked me straight up. He's like, oh, because I was defending gay rights, and he goes, well, are you gay? And yes, but literally, I'm like,
that. Sorry, I'm a good person.
Yes, and I literally said the whole thing where I'm like, well, I also support animals. I'm like, not an animal if I support animals, right? So I used that as my thing, and I got really offended that he asked me if I was gay. Obviously, I was gay. I knew I was gay, but I didn't want to come out. And so he low-key felt so bad. I remember he like gave me $20. He was like, I'm sorry, And so the first thing I said when I came out to him was like, I just want to say, like, I'm sorry for reacting the way I did, because you were right. I was gay, but I just wasn't ready to say it then. And I told him, like, I have a boyfriend, and I came out, and we sat with it, and one of the first things he tells me is like, every father dreams for their son that white picket fence life. The wife, the kid he throws ball with, he goes on the baseball team, says all that. And he's like, but like, and it took some adjustment, but ultimately he accepted me, and we hugged, and it was a journey. The first 2 years after I came out, at least once or twice a year, he would go like, but do you know for sure? Or like, have you ever been with a girl? And I'll always throw, well, have you ever been with a guy? Like, how do you know? And he's like, well, because he goes like, well, I can tell when a guy is like, genuinely attractive. Doesn't mean I want to be with him. I'm like, but do you want to make out with those guys? And no. Well, okay, then it's different. But, that took some time. The next person I came out to was my mom. Context, like, my mom was very much in and out of my life. She didn't become really consistent. Like, we were consistent together till I was like maybe 7, 8, if that. She was in and out of my life till I was about 14, 15. And so I have a detachment to her. I love her, and I am close with her, and I used to be such a mama's boy, but there's not like, it's not like we're like you and your mom. You know what I mean? Like, I can't fathom go hanging out with my mom, because like, it's just not what we do. So I didn't want to come out to her, but so she lived in Poway. I lived with my dad, and she would always let me bring a friend over to stay the night for the weekend. So in my head, I'm like, well, she doesn't know I'm gay, so how about I invite my boyfriend, Yeah, my high school boyfriend. So I invited my high school boyfriend over, and we planned it out. We were like, and we were going to share a bed, because that's normally what I would do when I'd have friends sleeping over. And like, before bed, my mom goes, son, can you sleep with me tonight? And I'm like, okay, sure. So we're sleeping in the bed, and we're like, okay, and she goes, son, is that your boyfriend? And I was like, yeah. Should I say you're gay? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh, God. And my mom is an extremely religious person. Like, they have Bible study Tuesday. They go to Bible for groups Wednesday, and they go every Sunday. Like they're about it. And so my mom is like, she cries, and like my mom, I'm like, I don't care. Like I love my mom, but
also she took it out. She brought it out of you. You know, it's not like you came out. She like forced it out.
Yeah,
she forced it out of you.
She did 100%. And so I was like, yes, mom, I'm gay. She cries for a bit, and she goes like, she basically told me like, the world's just a bad place for you. My pops said the same thing when I came out. Like he told me, you have to be careful. There's like, you need to know where places are safe. You know, at this point, me and my high school boyfriend had already been yelled at. We had already been heckled. People had already called slurs at us. Like, I'm like, so it kind of, I got upset because I'm like, I know. Like you're telling me the reality of my life. Like you don't think I live it as a feminine leaning gay man? Like I know the risks. My mom was the same thing. She basically said like, you're gonna live a hard life.
But I'm like, why do they make it harder for you?
Exactly.
If they know how hard it's gonna be for you, why cry when you tell her, or why you're gonna like I'm gonna go to hell or whatever if he is gay. Like, okay, I get it. But also, like, look in the mirror. You know, you're
a trillion.
It's like pot kettle. You know.
Yeah.
You're the type of person you're warning him about.
Exactly that. Like, I love my parents. I love my mom. But like, the last person who should be giving any morality advice are my parents. All of them. You know, I'm like, I understand people have great bonds with their parents, and I understand that might stop people from even coming out because, like, I don't want to ruin that. But for me, it's just like the coming out solidified. I'm like, y'all don't know me. Like, the reality you guys think isn't truth. So why is it that your opinion of me, why would that even matter? Like, you don't know. So, and then my mom basically goes before it ends, like, as long as you keep your relationship with God. And I'm like, okay, girl, I will. You know, not because you told me, but because I have my own relationship with religion and, like, spirituality. Like, and I'm a believer. Whatever. The last person I came out to was my dad. So my dad and I have lived together since probably I moved in with him halfway through 4th grade. I don't know what age that is, but maybe like 8, 9, and 10 maybe. And we lived together, and I love my dad, but he's an iron worker. My grandpa was an iron worker. They're very hard men. They're very hard-headed men. And so, like, me and my dad used to be close when I was younger, but we kind of lost that, especially when I moved in with him. He was always tired from work, and so I was always alone at home. I didn't really talk to my grandpa. He hated me low-key, like dead ass, and my dad was always in his room. Yeah. So I was alone a lot of the time, and so I didn't really have like a super close bond. So like my dad was the last person I came out to for several reasons. One, because I lived with him, and so there was that fear of getting kicked out, right? I had packed my bag before I came out to him. I knew my high school boyfriend, his family knew, and they didn't like me, but they didn't hate me, so I knew I could stay with them, worst case. So that's when I went downstairs, and it was just me and my dad, and I told him, and I came out to him. And at this point, this was my junior year. And my dad, he's very like, yeah, I know. I knew Drew. And I'm like, okay. Like, literally that. And I'm literally, so what now? And I'm like, okay. And he's like, just don't get anything. Like, just, yeah. Like, basically like that. He just basically told me, don't get HIV, AIDS, and don't die.
By the way, that's the response I'd like to have from my dad.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like I'd rather just hear that than, like, a spiel about, like...
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I know. You know?
Exactly. Like, and I will say, like, after that, me and him didn't really talk for a bit. And that used to be the case with my dad. We are so much better now, but if I did something that really upset him, that can range from doing the dishes wrong to, like, coming out as gay, you know? If I did something that bothered him, he wouldn't talk to me. He gave me the silent treatment, and... you know, he's grown past that, and I've internalized that. I used to be like that major. Ask any of my, like, old friends, like, if you piss me off, I will make you feel the tundra of coldness. Like, I will enter a room, and I'll make sure you know I'm upset with you. And because that's what I grew up. Like, my grandpa was like that, so my dad became like that, I became like that. And so, me and my dad, I didn't bring up being gay to him. I remember the day I broke up with my high school boyfriend. I was at a family party and I left it. I walked home bawling because I just was so sad. And, you know, just because you end a relationship doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, of course. And it's my first love. And my stepmom comforted me and my dad just didn't. He didn't come in the room because he knew. And he just didn't want to be confronted with that. And that, you know, that just also told me, like, well, why would I come to you about this stuff? Like, you won't even come to me. And it sucks because, like, you know, I grew up watching Disney Channel, like the families and like the daughter like crying, the parents coming, they'll do whatever to cheer, you know, and I like, oh, let me get emotional. Like I never had that. And I had to give that to myself. I had to have friends. That's why my friends, that's my fucking family. Like, but like I am so about family is not blood, it's chosen. And for a long time it was because like I'm like, well, I can't trust any of y'all, you know? So that was me coming out to my parents, all three. There was a few funny ones here and there. My grandma, she, you know, my grandma, like, shout out. Yeah, shout out. I love my grandma. And so in high school, she'd always pick me up from school. And I would get dropped off every morning, but she would pick me up from school. She picked me up, right? And like from my high school to where I lived was like a 15-minute drive, not because of distance, but because of traffic.
Yeah, I was like, wait.
No, like literally just because of traffic. Damn. And so I came out to my grandma, right? She like picks me up, and so the first thing she goes is she laughs. She's like, "You're joking." Yeah, she's like, "Ah!" And I'm like, "I'm not joking, Grandma." She's like, "You're pulling a prank on me." I'm not pulling a prank, Grandma. She goes, "No, you're not." I'm like, "No, mijo, no." And I'm like, "Okay, Grandma, I am." But yes. And I even told her, like, "Do you remember that one friend you would drive around? Like, that was my boyfriend." She's like, "No." And then she was okay, like, no. And she's like, "Well, maybe you're just confused, mijo." Like, driving me home, right? And she goes, "Well, you just gotta be careful. There's so many, like, older men out there who will prey on you." And I'm like, I mean, she was right. Like, she ate that. Yeah. But I was like, "Okay, Grandma." Like, and then she's like, "Oh," like, and literally by the time we got home, she told me, like, "I accept and love you, mijo." Like, she was telling me her favorite newscasters that are gay. And, like, literally she went through all the stages, like denial, like bargaining, all that. Minutes. In 15 minutes and accepted me. That, to me, that's unconditional love.
100%.
That is, my grandma, like, is not the most left-leaning person. You know what I mean? But all that went out the window because she loves me so much. And it hurts because I'm like, my grandma does that, you know? Why can't my mom, who's like significantly younger, who wasn't raised in the old school generation, like to this day, I love my mom, but she talks to my siblings about me having a wife. Like, what is that?
Why are you still fighting?
Why are you still fighting it? I'll never forget. It was around the time I had came out to her and she was talking bad about it to my siblings. She was like, "Oh, you know, in the Bible." And I called her because I found that out. And I was such a mama's boy. I truly was. My mom ended up going to prison, jail, the one that you're there for a long time. She was there for 4 years. She comes out. My mom was such an unstable parent. And so, like, she put me and my siblings at risk for so many things. She put us in harm's way in so many different times for so many different things. And so, like, to hear that she was saying all that, I literally cussed her the fuck out. Like, yeah. I literally was so upset. And I was like, "You are the last person I want to hear anything about. You are the worst person I know. How dare you say anything about me?" And she tried playing victim. She's like, "Well, I went through stuff too." And I literally told her, "I don't give a fuck." IDGAF.
But also, I'm like, you went through stuff too.
Exactly. Because of her. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so you just accepted that I went through stuff. You didn't care. And that was 8 years ago. I had that talk, and like things have gone. My mom will never say anything to my face. That's for sure. She knows. But hearing to this day, she still has that really upsets me. And it gets to a point where I'm like, "You're disrespectful." Like, and that sucks. Like, you're my mom, and like you disrespect me behind my back. Like, that's not cool. And so for me, I think that's a good like segue. You know, my dad and I distanced up until recently. I will say the turning point with my dad that I truly felt like, okay, It was my second relationship. I was 20. Yeah, I was 20. So this was 500 years ago, and
Close.
yeah, and I got dumped. It was my first time ever getting dumped, and like I was just a mess. And I remember I had two thoughts. Like I had gotten dumped, I dropped him off, and I was like, okay, do I go home to my mom? Because at this point I was living with my mom. I moved in when I was 18, or I'm like, or do I just go to my dad's? And I went to my dad, and I like never would have, and he didn't know I was coming. I just knocked. They got scared. It was my dad and my stepmom, and they're like, Andrew, because they couldn't. And I just came in, and I hugged my dad, and I just started bawling. And he was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I got dumped. And my dad was literally, he told me, he's like, I'm so sorry, son. He's like, but I'm so happy you came to me. Like that, and that I was like, okay, our relationship healed. And that, like, for me, that was where I'm like, okay, you accept me. And that's all that's all I want. It's just pure acceptance. Like, and in that moment I got it. So I love my dad. But growing up, my dad and I were really distant. My mom was in and out of my life. My pops, I saw him a few times a month, and I didn't meet him until like 7, like, so I am not that close with any of my parents. Like, there are times where I'm closer than others. Like, I'm closer to one than the other. But like, I am not like this with any of them. So for me, it's hard to grasp the concept of like, oh, I'm scared to come out because how my parents react. I'm like, girl, who cares? And I sometimes, like, I'll be honest, like, in the past, it's kind of just like in my head, kind of like judgy. I don't know how to describe it. It's like an internal, like, but like, do it for you. But that's the difference, though, is like I grew up a certain way. And so that's going to inform how I view coming out. For me, coming out was totally, and as it should be, but like totally about me. And the thing is, like, I'm able to think that way. I'm able to perceive that way because I'm not close with family. I don't have, the stakes aren't there. The risk isn't there like other people. And so for me, that's like, I would say like my full coming out, ever since I came out to my parents and my it's like, I'm openly gay. I've been openly queer since before I graduated high school, which is a great feeling where like, if a photo of me making out with a guy is posted circling through the internet, no one's gonna be hitting my line up like, you're gay, like, or I'm not gonna be, because and that it feels great, and it gets to a point where I'm like, I can't believe I was ever even in the closet. But when it's, every journey is different, everybody's journey before it informs how they view it, and so I definitely wanted to ask you and kind of talk about like, what is your viewing of coming out? Like, you came out for your first time, because I feel like Friends it's a bit different.
Yeah.
Like, you came out for the first time, you're 25. It's like, where's your journey moving forward with it? So yeah, please, like, I want to pick your brain about like, what has stopped you in the past? What stops you now from fully? What are your thoughts about it? Like, please.
It's so funny that you mentioned it, like playing with Barbies, because I have a similar story, because it was Christmas. I remember in Scooby-Doo, Monsters Unleashed had just come out.
Cinema.
And I remember my cousin and my sister, they had gotten the Daphne and Velma dolls. And they each came with a little Scooby. It was really cool. It was like, it was honestly, I was gagged. I was like, whoa, this is like school, like toys.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to play with them because I'm like, they're Scooby-Doo toys.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
They're not for boys and not for girls. They're just toys. So I was playing with the dolls, and I remember asking my mom, like, oh, Mom, can you get me the Fred doll so I can play with my cousin and my sister, Like, I'd be the guy that have I thought it was normal. And she's like, no, dolls are for girls. Like, I remember I got this Hot Wheels track, and also I got this semi that was full of cars. And I loved it because, I love cars. I love cars I still do. But back then, it was my fascination. But just seeing like the girl toys, I don't know, it felt not right, but I'm like, oh, I kind of like this too.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how you talk about your parents, because like in a way, I had also like a distant dad, because I was born in TJ. I was born and raised in TJ, but my dad worked here. Like, he would cross every day because he worked here, and then eventually we moved here full time. But my mom didn't have papers yet, so my dad was filing them, whatever, so she could be a resident, she could come over with us. But I didn't have a strong, close relationship with my dad because he was always working, which meant that I was close with my mom. Mm-hmm. Not only my mom, but also my grandma and mm-hmm. my tia. And I've always thought about it, like our family, I feel like Mexican families traditionally are very patriarchal.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the abuelos on, like, the head, the dad, whatever. But my family, it was very matriarchal. Like, my grandma was at the top. There was my grandma, my mom, and my tia. They were, like, the heads of the house. And I was the only boy. So, you know, I always considered me the golden kid. Yeah. The golden kid of the family, because, like, everyone loved me. Everyone protected me. And I feel like that gave me the freedom to express myself without having to question it. Recently, I was on Tuesday, I was telling my coworker Leslie, I was like, I just came out to my little sister, like, you know, it was really nice. She was asking me about it. Like, it was a really nice conversation. And she told me, she's like, it's so funny, because in a way, I knew you were gay. And I was like, really? Uh-huh. Because I you know, like, I don't know if it's something that I should pride myself in, but I pride myself in being ambiguous in the way that I don't show if I'm, like, into women or into men. Yeah. I like just keeping that, like, ambiguity in a way. No, because, you know, I don't want to be questioned, like, blah, 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 blah. But she's like, the way you carried yourself and, you know, like, the way you put lotion on, put chapstick, your hair was always wet, which meant you showered in the morning. And it just made me think, like, no, like, straight guys don't do that, you know. They don't care about having their hair done, like, not done but like wet from the shower. Yeah. And I was like, that's so interesting. And because most of those things, they were inculcated by me, by my grandma, you know. My grandma, my mom, my tia, like, always putting lotion on, like, legs, arms, everything, face, because, you know, you have to be presentable. Yeah. So I see, like, femininity. I feel like growing up in such a feminine environment allowed me to embrace it rather than, like, push it away. Because, you know, and that's so funny. Like, I wonder if my dad had been more in present, he learned to reject it, you know, rather than because he would feel like he had to take up. Because even now, okay, like, I live with my dad, but, like, I don't talk to him. Yeah. You know, like, well, of course we'll say hi because we're not mad at each other. But it's not like we go out of our way to be like, oh, like, how was your day, whatever. You know, we just straight into our room. Eat, both of us, like, as soon as they come in, walk into my room, like, whatever. Him too, like, it's not like he tries. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, if he's not gonna try, why should I try?
Oh, I'm the biggest champion of, like, don't do more than what your parents are doing. Yeah, your parents,
not even with parents, with everyone. Like, because it's really, I like how you said that coming out should be about you. Yes. And that I champion that, like, 100 billion trillion%. Yeah. Because I feel like at the end of the day, I don't owe it to anyone.
Exactly, you know? That. Ooh, like,
that's why I decided, because I remember you telling me, oh, you should tell her family, but I'm like, no, like, I'm just gonna tell my little sister, because my little sister, like, I love her with, like, my whole heart. You know, she's my world. I don't owe it to anyone to come out, you know? Like, of course, I'll let them know eventually, but I'm not in a rush because, like, I do have that fear, you know, of getting rejected by my family. But now that I'm older, like, that feeling just, in a way, kind of washed away. Yeah. Because I'm old. I'm 25. Yeah. Why, like you said, why should I care, you know? Yeah. And also, I feel like I've never been scared to be, like, me. You know, maybe because, like, I'm a big guy, so, like, who's gonna step? You know, like, oh, you're an F word. Like, okay, let me punch you. Yeah, you know, like, someone say something to me and see. Exactly. You know, so I always recognize that I do have, in a way, kind of like that little privilege of the way I was raised. You know, that's why I don't question when other people don't come out or they're not out yet, or the way they came about it, because, like you said, every journey is different. Like, I do. Not that I feel bad that, like, in a way I hide myself, because, like, I don't care. Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, if it is call it hiding myself, I call it protecting my peace. So why would I want to share a piece of myself to others, and they'll just, like, trash it? Yeah. Or, you know, like, for, like, your mom, you know, like, you thought that by telling her, it would eventually her grow into accepting it, but then, even, like, lately, like, you know, she's been, like, talking about you. Yeah. I'm like, no, like, I get it, you know, she is your mom, but no, like, and even like how I said, you know, it seemed like she just got it out of you. Yeah. You know, you were gonna tell her, but I feel like that just also in a way takes the power away from you.
Yeah. Oh, because I was on the spot.
100%. Like, what are you gonna do? Like,
lie, double down on it, or and then like make it more awkward going forward, or just be honest.
Yeah, that's why I feel like I've always been not private, but just very, very secluded about that.
I want to say, I feel like also our families operate different. Like, my family is very much like all up in each other's biz. Like, there's, you know, we would hang out literally every Sunday. Like, we are in each other's biz. Like, boyfriends and girlfriends meet the family within a month. Like, we go on family trips together. So I feel like my family's so like that. Like, at least on my dad's side. My mom's side is whatever. Which is so weird because so many people, it's the opposite. Like, they love their mom's side and then their dad's side is mid. I'm like, my mom and that's adjacent are all insane. But that's why I also felt like I had to come out and I wanted to come out was because I wanted to share that part that everyone does, you know? Like, I look at my cousins that get to bring their partners to when we go to Glamis or to Big Bear, you know, and like, it's like sand dunes. Yeah. What the? Yeah. Arrakis? That's good. But
like Dune?
Yeah. And I've always envied that. And like, part of me like wants a significant other just so I can finally like unabashedly show him off to my family. Because, for example, the high school boyfriend, the only family member who met him was like officially and was like, this is my boyfriend, was my pops. We went out to dinner and my pops was even like, could you just do me a favor? Can you guys not hold hands or touch the whole time? I'm like, okay. I'm like, it's not like we're gonna.
Serious?
Yeah,
exactly.
But so I never really had the chance to be like, hey family, here's my boyfriend, and then my family gets close with my boyfriend and they tell me, he's like, I never had that experience. I've always shielded my significant others from my family because I wasn't ready to let those walls down. But now those walls are down. Like, now my family is like, my tia Monica, I love her with my whole heart, you know. Anytime I show her a guy I'm talking to, she'll be like, he's cute, or, you know, she'll show like my niece, you know, like, oh, look who your Uncle Drew's talking. Like, they're very supportive now and I love that. But, you know, I would say everyone in my life has came around it but my mom, which is crazy. So many people, like a lot of gay men, their bond with their mom is like, you know, it's everything. And it used to be with me, but it's just not like that anymore. And it's sad. It makes me sad, genuinely. And it genuinely makes me also wonder of like, what more, you know? Like, do I need to get married? Do I need to have a kid? Like, when are you finally going to accept me for me?
I feel like, can I say something?
Of course.
I feel like that's your problem.
I mean, it's my mom.
It's your mom.
Would you not do that for your mom? Is my thing. Like, you talk so much. You love your mom.
I do.
You would give up on your relationship with her.
But, like, that's the thing. I feel like, you know, because I love how you brought up the closeness of your family. Because, dude, my family, we used to be like that.
Yeah.
Like, every Sunday, you know, like, carne asada. Or, like, oh, let's just all watch a movie. You know, Christmas, weekends, we would go over to my tia's house. But, like, because I lived in such a close-knit family like that for so long, I started to realize how toxic it is.
Yeah.
You know, like, dude, the toxicity in that family. That's why, of course, you know, during the holidays, oh, dude, I'm like melancholic for like old Christmas. Because, dude, I like to close my eyes and just like reminisce because it's so beautiful. But like, that's the thing. I have to accept that now they're all memories. You know, of course, I do want to introduce my partner eventually. Like you said, I'd rather them meet you guys, you know, like my chosen family, rather than. Well, of course, eventually they will. Yeah. But like, I feel like I've always said it. I feel like you guys are, or like my friends are a better reflection of the person I am right now than my family.
Yep.
Is. You know, because my family, yeah, of course, you can go talk to them if you want to get a perspective of the old me.
Yeah.
You know, but like, I feel like now I've evolved so much that like you need to meet my friends first to understand the person that I am. If you do want to really meet me, then of course, you know, my family, but it's not going to be an updated.
No, it's the you that grew up. It's the you that like the you that they're holding on to is the version of you that they watched grow and like, but it's not the actual version of you. And I feel like it's great that you said that because it helps me tie to something that essentially along the lines of I've never been myself more times since I came out. It would be if before I came out I would be the true me, you know, 50% of the time while I was at school or Then if I came out to certain parents, 60%, 70%. But since fully being out, like, I am me all the time. I am like, and I don't, of course I'm not like a mess in front of my family, like saying the stuff, but that's like, they don't need to know that. But in front of my family, I'm like, oh yeah, like, I tell them even small, like now I feel more comfortable even telling them like small stuff of like work, of friends, of like, I have finally been able to be like, okay, you guys know like me now, like, okay, fine, I'll give you the parts I want. Yeah. Versus in the past where like, if a story involved me being gay in the slightest, I would like avoid it with all costs. Like even if like it wasn't even a part of it, it was just like, I don't want to bring it up. Yeah. So I feel like it just comes with time. And not everyone's going to react the same way. I did also preface like that me and my mom aren't close because like I also feel like that plays a part too. I feel like if me and my mom lived together our whole lives, if we had a bond that we used to when I was little, then maybe she would learn to accept it a bit more. But because of where we're at and because of where she's at, her number one and two is religion. And there's not a lot of room for her gay son. No. And it sucks because it's like, I love my siblings down. But they'll tell you, like, out of the four of us, who's, like, done the most. And so far it's been me. And I feel like that doesn't matter, though. Because, like, I'll always be gay. Yeah. My mom will never, like, my mom buys stuff for my sisters to give to their boyfriends for anniversaries, She'll drive to dates. She'll pick them up. She lets their boyfriends stay over. And yeah, in a different room, but, like, to stay the night, like, no matter how much you guys will bump heads, mom validates your being. Like, that's what it boils down to. Mom doesn't, like, accept me for me, and, like, that's just a different type of hurt, and that's a different type of, like, distance. And I think the bottom line of this is you choose when you want to come out to who you want to come out to, mm-hmm. because any other time, like, I was told I was gay before I ever came out, before I ever realized that. And that, I know for a fact, that pushed me in the closet more than hearing my dad talk about hell. It was everyone telling me who I was before I was able to come to terms with it myself. I'm like, I want to prove you guys wrong. I'm not. Versus if, like, let me breathe. Like, if my mom didn't confront me then, I could have came out to her on my terms, and maybe we could have built something from it. But instead, we're sharing the same bed. She's crying. It's the middle of the night. It's dark. And I'm just like what? Literally, like, what? Like, what do you want me to do? If I really had to boil it down, what my mom's thing was my mom had me when she was 19. My age now, I was already 5. Mm-hmm. Like, which is freaking, like, as if, like, I had a 5-year-old right now. Like, it's a lot. And my mom's mom died when my mom was 2. Dad was never in my mom's life. So my mom didn't reconnect with her father until like a few years before he died, and of old age. And so my mom never didn't have that support. And so my mom was always lost. And I think going to prison helped her find a path, and that path ended up being religion. And I think that is my mom's new foundation. And so everything boils back to religion. And so even we'll have to, like, how she views us will always be through the lens of her one real love, which is religion. And so, like, when she sees me, I feel like it's clouded by her lens of religion. So that's why. And I don't know, it's so weird. I can't think of, like, a single time my mom has ever been like, so are you dating? But, like, my stepmom or my tia Monica, even my cousin, like, that's always what they're asking. Like, oh, are you dating any guy? And it's sweet. Shout out Alicia.
Yeah. The best.
The freaking best. We love you. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, Alicia also was like, do you like boys, Andrew? I was like, but Alicia...
But it's the way you go about it.
Exactly.
She didn't,
she was like, so do you? And, like, it was more of like... And I was like... Bias. Yeah, and I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay. And she told me, and I don't know, maybe she did tell my dad, but she told me she wouldn't tell him, and I came out to him, and that felt good. I love my step. And that's the thing. But the real parents are the ones who steps up when your kid is actually going through shit. Alicia has helped me through my diagnosis, with bipolar disorder. She's helped me come out to family. She's always had my back. She helped me get in touch with therapy. Like, she's the reason where I am. Like, she's helped me grow a backbone. Like, growing up, I used to hate it because Alicia, I wouldn't say a Karen. if she feels like something is wrong, she's gonna speak her mind, and
Good.
and literally good. And the older I get, the more I get it. Then we're gonna get what we deserve.
Yeah.
And like I used to be like,
that pisses me off. That used to bother me too. But now that I'm older, I get it.
oh, I get it. Like
if we're paying, why are you not like?
yes, like what's
the deal?
exactly?
You're not giving it to me for free. Just give it to me since I'm paying for you.
Exactly.
Paying for it.
She was like that with car insurance to restaurant. Like, and the thing is, like, when you're a kid, I mean, you're kids, you're non-confrontational. You don't want to be like, oh, they're so awkward.
Yeah.
But the older you get, the more it's like, I don't care if things get awkward.
No.
No. And so, like, Alicia, who taught me to be that way. Like I love her, and so it was about me. And she asked me, like, so are you dating? And then when I told her, because my family had known my high school boyfriend because I'd bring him over, but I didn't say it was my boyfriend. Right. Like, literally, have you ever seen Rocket Man?
No.
The Elton John. You like? We should watch. Yeah. The mom kind of tells like Elton essentially like, this is the life you're gonna live. Like you chose it, and so it's gonna be hard. And it's gonna be without love.
I hate that.
Right?
I hate that. Like that's the first thing you're told when you come out. Well, the world's gonna be bad. The world isn't like okay. Of course we know, but like why are you adding to it?
Exactly.
But why not nurture? You know.
Yeah.
Safety instead of already here danger. You know?
Exactly.
No.
And one thing I do want to say, I always think about something that you told me that I feel like it ties really into that of like nurture versus like I grew up as soon as I gained weight, which growing up I was extremely skinny. To be fair, it's because I was malnourished, but I was skinny and I lived life and I was a skinny, happy boy.
You were skinny, so.
Exactly. But I moved in with my dad and all of a sudden I had access to food. So I was like, you know, like literally blew up. Yeah. And, you know, I was a cute little kid, but I was, from the second I gained that weight, I was always reminded of it. And I remember there was a point where like, even my dad was like, yeah, Drew, like your pants are like, and I'm like, ugh. Okay, I know, you know, like, but I say that, like, I was constantly, whether it be family, whether it be friends, whether, like, because my friends would clown on me about it, and then would it be my bullies, like, I was always put down because of my weight. So I grew up having an eating disorder, like, I viewed my body very negatively for such a long time. But I'll never get over when we kind of talked about it, and you kind of talked about how, like, you never really had to deal with that. It's shaped how you view yourself. Yeah. And I think I am so sexy now. I've grown to love myself. Oh, like we're back, and that's the thing. We know weight doesn't equal your attraction. Mm-hmm. Your attraction is how you look.
The person you are.
The person you are. Yeah. I'm a baddie and I have my roles. And like I'm a baddie with roles. Like that's like it doesn't matter. But I eventually got that. But I feel like the world was already telling me negative, and I didn't need to hear it. And so that kind of really ties into even just gayness.
That's so funny because going back to the whole weight thing, I feel like my family, of course, they would say it, but they never put me down for it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, because I mean, I used to when I was young. Like I'm like, let's go all the way back then.
Yeah.
I was skinny. I remember I was a really cute boy. And then when we moved full time here to the U.S., that's when like you know I blew up too.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I feel like in a way I didn't want other people to know I was fat, even though clearly
you can't really hide that.
Yeah, you can't hide it. Yeah. But like in my head, I was like, okay, like if people don't like see me as a fat person, then I'm not fat.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember I always tried to not be slow, present myself as like a not fat person.
Yeah.
Until like I eventually like accepted it, you know, like I'm fat.
Yeah, I always think about the guys that like once you stop talking to them or being like, no, you're weird. They're like, whatever, you're fat.
Yeah, fat pig.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you are still here.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, you know.
Yeah.
And like, of course, that hurt at first. After I'm like, those people like. They hide behind faceless profiles, you know.
Yes.
Like, of course, if I was ashamed of myself, I would hide myself too.
Exactly.
You know? But I'm not. Yeah. I'm proud. Like, I'm fat and proud.
Yeah.
You know? Even, I guess, I'm queer and proud.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say gay because
I love that. But, I love the label queer.
Yeah. I've always been a big guy. So, like, what? Like, are you gonna call me fat? Like, call me fat, I'll punch you.
Exactly
you know?
that.
Like, and that's what also I feel like I've gotten to be more accepting of myself because I learned to see my flaws into like virtues.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm big, but like okay, bigness comes with strength.
Yeah.
You know? And like that's another thing. I hate when people call fat people fat. Like, of course we know we're fat, but like, if we lose the fat, then what are you gonna call us?
Exactly.
You know, like we can lose the fat, but can you lose your ignorance?
Exactly.
You know, it's just like, and you know, like I get it. Like I said, I was privileged enough to be raised in an environment, you know, where it wasn't like looked down upon, or I wasn't beaten down, you know, because I was like big, you know, compared to you. Because I'm sure if I had grown up in a similar environment to yours, I wonder how like
it would shape you.
Yeah, how that would have shaped me. I wonder if I would have been more insecure.
I feel like a last point to wrap it up that ties in again exactly what you're saying, and even down to the concept of coming out. One thing that I always heard when I came out was basically straight men are gonna beat you up, and so like the fear of straight men was always put in me to the point where like I feel so uncomfortable around straight men. Like I always feel like they think I'm trying to like get at them, so like the amount of times I'll try and like these are my high school peers. Like, I'll respond to stories giving, like, love to either female or male. Like, oh, my God, I love to see it. And it's always the queens that are like, yeah. And it's always the secure men that also are like, oh, my God, yeah. But, like, I'll just get left on red, and I'm like, I'm not trying to come for you. It's not me trying to flirt. Like, come on. Like, we spent sometimes 6 years together. Like, we had classes. Like, I'm just trying to show love, try and be cool. I say that to say I have a lot of anxiety around straight men, whether that be negative fear or whatever. But I remember you saying that's not something you really heard or like.
Yeah, I mean, I feel I don't have fear. I don't know how to go about talking to straight men.
Yeah,
like you said, I feel like in the back of my head, I always have that like idea that they think I'm gonna try to like get at them.
Yeah,
because I feel like that's just the stigma of like gay men. Oh, we're always looking for straight men.
Yeah.
Like straight men. Like no, like
no,
we're not predatory.
Yeah. No, I'm different than you. I'm loved.
Yeah,
like
I was loved, but for example, with women, like straight or a queer, I feel like I'll like blah, 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 I'm like like put me in a room with women, I'll be friends with all of them.
Yeah.
But with men, I always have to, because for example at work, it was a warehouse job. So it was all like Latino men, like men. Like they would talk about like, oh, like let's go drink or let's go to the strip club, after work, like stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
But and for me, like it's not that I don't know how to. Yeah, it's just I don't know how to move around them.
Yeah.
Like with women or even other like gay men, of course I can. Even young men, I can. But with older, it's more like I don't know what setting to go into.
Yeah.
Like,
am I reserved?
Am I reserved?
Yeah,
like how cool are you with it? Just I feel like it's not really a fear of them. It's just more a fear of being around them.
Yeah.
Because like I do feel like a fish out of water. I just like I don't
not engage.
Yeah. Like I'll talk and like we'll have, but even the things I try to talk about, they're like.
Or like even if like movies, I'll say and like. Their takes are way different.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't fun.
I know. Like, I was talking about Game of Thrones with one coworker, and I was like, oh, like, my favorite characters are, like, Daenerys and Cersei. I feel like they're very opposite, like, polar characters. Like, Cersei, I think she's one of the greatest villains of, like, whatever. And he was like, oh, I don't pay attention to women. I pay attention to Jon. I'm like...
DL men? I don't know. I'm like, why don't you pay attention to gorgeous women? Yeah. But a man comes on and...
Yeah.
And, like, final thing, I feel like to wrap up also to DL men, I'm like, a lot of straight men be acting gayer than actual gay men.
Oh, at work, dude? Oh, there's these two guys. They were both married. And they would talk like one of them would call the other gorda, like as a cute pet name, and then the other one would be mi amor. And I'm like, okay, I know. I was like,
you two Walker?
I think they did. I'm like, that's what the voices say. Yeah. But it's like, okay, you guys play around like this, but the idea of like a man approaching you is like, whoa. Yeah. But like, you're over here saying how you're gonna do love to this one guy.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, like, mi amor, come over here. Like, like, oh, mi gordita. I'm like, do you guys, like, are you guys not like aware of how like gay that sounds?
Yeah.
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 It's just like.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. like the honest selectiveness of like their homophobia. You know,
Yeah.
it's weird.
It is weird.
I don't know.
Right, but
Yeah.
we're just two queers that
We're-
trying to navigate through it.
Yeah, because we don't get a handbook. You know,
No.
we just have to do it as best as we can.
Yeah,
Like,
and we
with
have each other to like really
yeah.
bounce it back.
And that's the thing. I feel like if you do feel, you know, lonely, finding comfort within your community is probably the best choice. Because like no one else is gonna understand the struggle you're going through as they do.
Yep.
Because you know, I mean, I've always had girlfriends, but I feel like it wasn't until I like became close with you that I kind of really started to like understand the person I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because of course I knew who I was, but I didn't fully understand the layers of it.
Oh,
you know, and I feel like for even this conversation, the whole coming out, it's just I love how, you know, the type of people we are now it does stem from how we grew up.
Yeah.
You know? And even though we are super similar, the differences in the way we think, it's like it's fascinating. I love
really
that.
is.
I love that. Because even some of the things like that we talked about, you know, they were so similar, but the outcome was like
night and
different.
day kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love that.
Me too.
I love it.
Yeah, so
Anything last thoughts?
final thoughts? No, thank you guys for tuning in for episode 2. This is a bit longer, but you know, we had way more to talk about. And
I know.
the first one we talked about, it was a lot more free. It was a little like we just threw out stuff, but
And also because we had more points.
exactly.
This is more like
thoughts coming to mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
About a general topic.
Exactly.
You know?
But yeah,
Thank you so much. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment.
Yeah.
You know, we love the engagement. We love reading your guys' comments. Like it's so fun. So
I guess today's question, if you guys are down for it, is like, what was your favorite coming out story? Whether it be yours or somebody else's. Like, what is something that either was heartwarming, funny, so crazy it ended up circling back to funny, like, or if they're, you know, if you want a trauma dump, we're here. We get it. We'll send our hearts.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Even a response.
Yeah. Oh, 1 trillion. But yeah.
But thank you so much, guys. Thank you for watching, listening.
All right. See you
Thank
next week.
Bye.
Bye.